What product was so poorly designed that you suspect the team that made it never used the product? Those sliding shower doors with an overlapping section that is impossible to clean without taking the whole door off. Software drivers for basically any HP printer made in the last 3 decades. I just bought a waterproof cargo bag for the roof of my car that was fairly expensive. The velcro that keeps the zipper protected was just glued on, not stitched. The very first time I opened the bag, all the velcro came off, because the attraction to itself was stronger than the adhesive bond to the vinyl bag. It's like there was absolutely zero product testing, but I'm sure it was 5 cents cheaper to make it glued rather than stitched. How could something like this have ever been allowed to leave the factory? The perforated corner of a Kraft mac and cheese box. All of the tear here markings on coffee packs, juice cartons, etc. mark the strongest, most tear resistant part of the package. Can I add all the resealable packaging too? It really does not reseal. Once you break the original seal and peel it back, there's no stopping it from flapping around, unless you put it in another bag or container. The damn Outlook search function. I'll search my boss name, whom I email multiple times a day for the past 7+ years, and it will say, no results, or here's an email from 2018, which is obviously what you're looking for, nothing more recent. Toys that only have one volume, extremely loud. Whoever makes these does not have kids of their own. Way too many carrying products, luggage, boxes, bags, laundry baskets, have put more emphasis on the comfort softness of the top of the handle, rather than the underside, which is the side that is forced into your hand with the weight of whatever is in your box bag basket. Edit 1. Half-assed the original message expecting no replies, so edited for typos. Edit 2. Way deep in the comments someone mentioned downward facing ridges on handle undersides. Yes. This was my catalyst. I'm convinced that the only grocery store that tested the hand baskets you use in store is Target. They put the handle in the comfortable orientation and curved the side. Everyone else just said, screw you, here's a basket. I have an inkjet printer, brother, that prints misaligned, makes slightly wavy text. I can't fix it because when you run the alignment diagnostic stuff, either manual or automatic, it prints a paper for you to scan so the printer can fix itself. However, the printer can't read the paper it scans because it's misaligned, so it can't get fixed. Stupidest thing I've ever seen. Even called support and they were like, welp, it's not supposed to do that. GG, better luck next time. My refrigerator has a water filter that cannot be changed without turning off the supply, which is behind the refrigerator. So you have to pull the multi-100-pound fridge, with all the food and such, out to turn the water off before you can change the water filter. The old Maytag it replaced had no such requirement. The Bluetooth app connectivity for my washing machine didn't really want that feature, but it was a last-minute substitution. If the wash cycle takes longer than the initial estimate, the start time changes rather than the time remaining estimate. I just don't bother with the app. My new iron has a restart if you tip it over after it's timed out. So if you accidentally leave it plugged in and it gets knocked over by accident, pet or child bumps the board, wind knocks something over knocking the iron over, it starts up while face down. That literally defeats the entire purpose of the timeout safety feature. The trunk won't open on some Chevrolet cars if the battery is dead. There is no keyhole or physical release cable. The battery is in the trunk. You can jump it from contacts under the hood, sure, but that's such a not designed choice to me. My kitchen trash can. It is one sold by Glad specifically for their bigger, extra strong 20-gallon trash bags. It is not particularly cheap. It looks good, but the design of it is what you might expect if you told aliens what a trash can is and they designed one without ever seeing it. How it holds the bag basically causes you to lose 4 gallons of capacity and have to risk tearing the bag or spilling its contents every time you go to remove it. It also has a trash bag holder that is so narrow, you have to feed it trash bags one at a time, completely defeating the point. And if you try to compact the trash a bit, you're almost guaranteed to tear the tear-resistant bag. Such a poor design. Edit, for everyone who keeps commenting about how I should recycle and compost. I do. That has nothing to do with my trash can. All iterations of Skype after Microsoft bought it. Skype for Business. Never has a product been less appropriate or ready for business use. Baby wipes. Hey, you know when a good time to struggle with opening a package that says it has perforations but really doesn't? You want one? Here's a chunk of 20. You want a bunch? Here's a tiny ripped corner. You have 10 left on a trip and need to conserve? Too bad, mother trucker. Here's the rest of the pack. Get your tired ass to CVS. My dishwasher beeps several times loudly when the cycle is done. Loudly enough that you can hear it outside the house. If you don't open the door, it will beep again 45 minutes later, and every 45 minutes forever until you do so. There is no way to silence this feature or reduce the volume. Apparently there's no such thing as starting the dishwasher at night and then going to bed in these designers' minds. Women's underwear. The part that is supposed to get dirty is never far enough forward to catch what it's supposed to catch. Eater after 4k upvotes. I've got a business idea. Anybody want in? I'll add a comment as someone said something that made me think. Streaming services search engines? You can literally have 10k to 50k things to watch, but there is absolutely no way to do an in-depth search. Doesn't have to be through a mobile app, maybe an online connection through a website. But if I want to find a show that was running in the late 90s and I know it was science fiction, why can't I do that? So much content I might want to watch but can't find it. Cling wrap. It clings to everything except what you want it to. It only clings on itself. At least in my experience. Some road intersections make me wonder if the engineers have actually ever driven a vehicle. Sometimes they were based off of old horse and cattle paths. Back when I traveled a lot for work, my crew and I used to joke that whoever was in charge of building the first roads just saw a gopher and said follow that guy. The rubbed condoms don't even taste like ribs. Have you tried putting BBQ sauce on them? Maybe you're just not a dry rub kinda guy. My mom's had 3 wheelchairs. They all suck. The brake lever mechanism invariably interferes with the footrests. On her current one, the brake lever mechanism is curved, so it's pretty good. I think it could still be better. I'm surprised they're not better. I definitely feel like given my experience I could design a much better wheelchair than anything on the market under $1,000. I remember a couple years back there was a push for smart diapers. It was basically a diaper with a little tab on it that would tell when it was soiled. I have 3 kids, 2 of which are still in diapers, and 1 wears them for nighttime. I probably change 20 plus diapers a day. I don't know any mom who would want to pay more for smart diapers, to tell them what they already know. My thought when they came out. They are definitely not changing a lot of diapers. Probably not even a parent. Edit, I mean is an electronic tab on the diaper that notifies you when it's soiled. Not the wetness indicator. I'm reminded of a book I once read by a former tech reporter, who claims most of the industry is bullshit. In one of the chapters he talked about going to the Google headquarters for an event, shortly after Google Glass came out. The event was centered around the product, and lots of attendees were wearing their pair, but the author noted that not a single Google employee who were hosting the event were wearing Google Glass. That's when he said he knew the product was doomed. Any sites with lots of text and ads in between. Scroll down, start reading, then the ad loads and your article shifts down a few inches. Go to click a link but suddenly the ad loads and you click that. One of the biggest reasons I switched from iPhone to Android was so that I could use ad blockers on Firefox. The website for the library in our city. Definitely made or customized by consultants that don't use our city's library. Likely that is exactly true. They probably hired someone to get the job done remotely. Or they had to put it out for competitive bids and they got what they paid for. Okay, bear with me here. All these grocery items in plastic that have a ziploc closer as well. The idea is great. Open, use, reseal. But in my experience, and I'm not exactly old and weak, these don't work as planned. Frequently they have a perforated section you can rip off, supposedly to allow access to the ziploc portion. Many times there's glue holding pieces together and the perforated section never seems to extend past that. Even when not glued, the ziploc is apparently held together by the weak nuclear force and will not come apart. There's never enough plastic to pull on, and when there is, it's approximately as strong as wet tissue paper. So it just rips. IMHO, the worst offenders are deli meats, but it's been 20 years and more that have flummoxed me. Far too often I just take scissors to the package and then seal it later with a clothespin. Modern fans. I remember as a kid they were all solid AF, mostly metal, moved tons of air, and they were quiet, or at least made a consistent and constant steady sound. Now they are all city plastic, crap at moving volumes of air, weak motors, with cheap feet and handles that break or fall off, vibrate all over the place, wobble, fall over, make high-pitched whines, irregular noise, and otherwise just suck. And you can't even pay to win. There are no high-end models, they are all trash. Eater, thanks everyone. I was shopping for fans in the wrong place. Seems like I'd have much better luck at hardware, commercial, industrial, farm stores and second-hand shops. I will be upgrading both my fans this year and I now have a battle plan. Really appreciate all the advice. Bacon packaging. You are supposed to eat all the bacon in one sitting. It's single-use packaging. Remember that juicer, meant to be used to squeeze out those bags? It was like $400, plus the cost of the bags, but you could just squeeze them out by hand. The juicero, and a classic case of Silicon Valley arrogance marketing. It was literally a machine that squeezed juice from a bag, but people believed they were getting fresh juice from a bag. After the illusion was shattered and VC dried up, the ex-CEO said something along the lines that their core customers loved the experience of feeling like they were getting fresh juice or something like that. Don't forget you needed a subscription for the squeezing machine to work. Most garden hoses, wouldn't you think that the first design requirement would be that it work without kinking? Garden hose is one of those things where it's worth it to spend a little extra. The cheap ones always kink, but a nice rubber one never does. My new 1,000 pound washing machine does a great job washing clothes and is all singing and all dancing. But all this additional stuff adds complexity and is an absolute bastard to clean. The detergent drawer has all this fancy stuff, my old didn't, and I just get so much mold growing. Have to take it all apart and clean it so often. It's so annoying. Edit, everyone telling me to leave the drawer and door open. Yeah, I get that. But that's why I answered the original question. Stupid design that I have to leave the doors open when not in use. It's dangerous, with kids and cats, and it gets in the way. Stupid design. My clothes dryer. It has touch controls that are designed in such a way that you pretty much have to guess what you're supposed to touch. Nothing visibly looks like a button, and when turned on has an inexplicable 10+ sec delay before the touch controls work, so you basically poke it all over the place without even knowing if it's the right place to poke, or if you simply need to wait for nothing to happen. I mean, that's what I think, at least, but can't be sure since there seriously is no visual indication of anything. There's also a numerical display which I assumed was related to the time left until it's done, but I've been using it for almost 2 years now and I still have no clue what those numbers are meant to indicate. They certainly don't correlate with any time units I'm aware of. An app, Duolingo. The people who made it claimed they wanted to make an app that can get you to beat a CEFR level in your target language. One of the creators used it after the app was made, which is a bit sketchy, to learn Spanish. After he finished the course, a reporter asked him hablas español, do you speak Spanish? He couldn't understand what he was being asked and asked the reporter to repeat. Beta level. Sure, Duo. In my experience, most educational resources curriculums created by district employees that have never taught or hasn't taught in 15+ years. The amount of times they give this new fantastic module tool, and it turns out to be an absolute shit show. Wild. Sanitary pads. Especially ones advertised as zero bunching. They most certainly do bunch. They will go straight up your bum crack. They can only have been designed by someone who doesn't use them to have made that claim. The mouse for a Mac where the charger is on the bottom. That was on purpose, as stupid as it sounds. They have some weird design philosophy and don't want people using their products in unintended ways. If the mouse was usable while plugged in, some people would 100% just leave the mouse always plugged in. Any pair of women's underwear that puts the seam of the two panels in between your legs through your crotch, rather than at the sides over your hips, was designed by someone without a vulva. No woman in her right mind would design it like that, unless she enjoyed having her flaps flossed. I design and build fountains, install all across the county. Reading all this reminds why I go through a lot of effort to revisit my previous installs, so I can see how things hold up after many years in public environments. It's easier to make something look nice temporarily, but the real test is when it's out in the wild. I've gone back to service or refurbish fountains up to 15 years old, and it's a tremendous learning experience seeing which parts and methods are reliable, and what needs the most improvement. This also helps me continuously design things better. The toilets whose tanks are wider at the top than the bottom, making it impossible for the toilet seat to be lifted and lean against it. The little foil seals on the tops of bottles of liquid, with the flap in the middle, that you're meant to pull on to remove. They work maybe one time out of 20. The newly built ladies' toilets in our office building, which had no space for the sanitary products bins. The bins ended up awkwardly shoved into the too small gap, with the net result of making the actual toilets too narrow to sit on. Fully expect those dimensions were drawn and approved by someone who had no use for the bins, or didn't even know they were present in every toilet. I bought a hair trimmer from Philips that has the size guide comb built in. It has a ring and the handle to change the length settings, with no lock. Absolutely impossible to use normally, without changing the cutting length halfway through. Every single whole lighting manufacturer that makes the terminals on the light fittings, they designed too small for the standard effing cabling that the country the lights are sold in uses by regulation. Every single fitting requires a junction before they are terminated into the junction and the light fitting. Every single manufacturer, and the more expensive the fitting, the worse the install. I'm half convinced it's a conspiracy to justify the cost, like, oh look how long it takes the electrician to install, very complex. Effing cunts. And another candidate, my microwave interface, was designed by idiots. Right below the start-stop button is a connect button that connects the microwave to the house network. This is a function that you use at most once in the lifetime of the microwave, and they place it in the most prominent location on the interface. Then not only do they hide the power level button off to the side, but you have to press another button to show the hidden options. I use power level probably 75% of the time. I use my microwave, and I have to hit 2 buttons just to get to it, while the completely useless connect button sits there, occasionally getting hit when someone's finger slips. My vacuum cleaner. The hose is mounted at a downwards angle, and it's impossible to pull it along as you go. It keeps going to the side, or even flipping over. It takes 1 minute of use to notice this, but I guess they only tested it for 30 seconds. All the chrome on the center console of my vehicle. It seems they only test drove it at night and didn't realize it would be a blinding, nay, glaring oversight in the sunlight. Windows Vista had much higher system requirements than the previous Windows. When it released, a lot of vendors made laptops with Vista pre-installed that could run Vista, but not anything else. The OS's requirements were so out of sync with the laptop's guts that something as simple as a web browser would move at a snail's pace and send all the fans into high gear. I'm certain that this is one of the reasons that Vista is looked back on so poorly. Most people who ran it on everyday machines got terrible performance because vendors slapped in two hardware that could barely run it. When Microsoft replaced it with Windows 7, they specifically offered a new, lightweight edition for lower-end machines to mitigate that problem. Newer nozzles for gas canisters. I guess it's law now that they all have spill-proof locks on them, but I've spilled way more with those than with the old school nozzles. To pour gas out, you have to use two hands for the lock, or perfectly place one hand on it while holding a heavy gas can over the tank of your lawnmower or whatever. I don't have 3 arms, so this simply doesn't work. I just started taking the whole nozzle off and pouring it straight from the can. A lot of newer toilets that use less water just have the same form factor of bowl, but now the water covers less of it. Kids and shorter adults basically poop directly onto bare, dry porcelain.